Call to order. Good evening. I now call to order the meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission for the City of Apache Junction. Today's date is February 14th, and the time is 7 p.m. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, Rudy.
Commissioner Barker.
Here.
Commissioner Begeman.
Here.
Commissioner Cantwell.
Here.
Vice Chair Hanchey.
Here.
Commissioner Cullen.
Here.
Commissioner Gage.
Here.
Commissioner Shanebeck.
Here.
7 present. We have a quorum, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Rudy. Consent agenda. Do we have a motion to approve the agenda as presented and accepted the minutes of December 13th?
Your Honor, Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Barker?
I move that we approve the agenda and approve the minutes from December 13th, 2022.
Second.
Rudy, I have a motion and a second. Can I get a roll call?
Commissioner Shanebeck.
Yes.
Commissioner Gage.
Yes.
Commissioner Barker.
Yes.
Commissioner Begeman.
Yes.
Commissioner Cantwell.
Yes.
Vice Chair Hanchey.
Yes.
Commissioner Cullen.
Yes.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Public hearings. Tonight we have presentation, discussion, public hearings, and consideration proposed resolution number P-22-75-CUP proposed conditional use permit to authorize development of a 2-story leased residential community request by John Fox, a William Seymour Company, Inc., on property zoned General Commercial B1 at the northeast corner of West Broadway Avenue and South Delaware Drive. The development is comprised of 28 or 30 units depending on the condition or the adopted conditions of approval.
All right, let me pull up the presentation.
Thank you.
Well, good evening, Planning and Zoning Commission. For those of you who are new, I am Nick Leftwich. I'm a planner for the City of Apache Junction. Welcome. Good to see everyone. So I'll be presenting the case information for P-2275 CUP, which is a conditional use permit, a request for the approval to allow the use of a 30-unit, 2-story leased residential community at the northeast corner of Broadway and Delaware. Just a closer look at the parcel. So currently at that corner, there is a Circle K, and that is remaining in place. It's kind of an awkward positioning with all these parcels. There's a small strip that is not part of the development, but and then we have the 2 parcels that we're looking at, which are the parcels behind, bordering on both Delaware and on Broadway. In terms of the zoning context, to the north and south are similar multifamily developments. In this case, they are townhome communities or condos in the case of the Indian summer condos. On the west side of the street, there is another water kiosk, as well as some single-family homes. Located on the current property is where there's a defunct water kiosk. That's why I say another. While to the east is other single-family residential properties. Here's a proposed site plan. This one, as I'll come to know, is dated November 17, 2022. There is a further revision of the site plan that received over the weekend that I'll look at with you, but this is what was in the staff report and the packet, and for the most part, it is much the same. The property, or the proposed development comprises 15 buildings with a bottom story unit and a top story unit. There is a total of 68 parking spaces being provided. The minimum would be the 60 spaces. In this case, they have 8 guest parking spaces, which is approximately a 2.6 per unit. One of the items that I have later on in the agenda is regarding the guest parking, and just as a forward mention, the ratios that we're looking at are anywhere from about 0.25 per unit to 0.5 per unit. So they've brought it up so that there's 8 parking spaces, kind of meeting, we worked with them in order to provide more guest parking, knowing that that has been a concern citywide. So just looking at the site, there's entrances on both Delaware and on Broadway. As shown here, there's landscaping bordering both those streets as well as throughout the site. Staff has worked with the applicant as well as their architects as they changed architectural teams in order to provide four-sided architecture. Just we made note that we would be able to see both the rear and the sides from the street, so we wanted to make sure that they also got architectural treatment. And in terms of the different veneers and having windows and different architectural interests, pop-outs and so forth, we work to ensure a high quality of architecture with them. Regarding public input, they've been in process for quite a while. Initially, their neighborhood meeting was on July 2nd, 2022. It's kind of been some time just because we had worked with them over multiple revisions, but since that time, even dating all the way back, staff has not received any neighborhood contact regarding this development, nor were any complaints noted by the applicant. Staff recommends the approval of P2275 CUP, subject to the conditions of approval found in the staff report. Noting just the different, as we're trying to strive to have different variety of housing types, but this also does maintain the current character of the neighborhood with what's there. It is also a very odd and awkward parcel, just given that the way it, even though it's on Delaware and Broadway, it's kind of at the point at which both of the streets have kind of slowed down a bit, not a very high trafficked area, because right on Apache Trails where we have all the retail, all the commercial, just a half mile north of that. So this provides the kind of infill development that we are looking for. We believe that it provides a good balance in this community. Looking again, this is the site plan that we received over the weekend, so it had not been included within the staff report. Noted in the resolution, there was condition 9, which would have required the removal of unit 4, which would have been located, that was the centermost unit, in order to provide different amenity spaces as well, and that would have an impact on parking as well. The applicant has, and some of that was because the prior proposed amenity space was located in an awkward spot behind the units, didn't really provide much for the community, and staff had worked with the applicant and advised either move the units around or we would require the removal of that building in order to provide these resources. So they did propose with this as a compromise. They shrunk some of the units down from a 3-bedroom unit to a 2-bedroom unit in order to squeeze a little bit more space. And right now, on the west side of the property, the amenity space is being proposed in a more open area with patio tables. And so staff is supportive of this change. It would not require condition 9 or the removal of building 4, but so we believe that this is a bit of a compromise, and the applicant is here in order to speak to that. Again, this is the prior site plan, what was all seen in the staff report. As discussed, there's a wall right here, and then you have the different units. So this was the prior amenity space, didn't have the barbecue spots or anything. And this is what the applicant had amended it to, and is now proposing in order to compromise. Well, to keep the unit, have everything pencil out, this is how they have adjusted their site plan. Yes.
So they're all 2-bedroom now?
Not all of the buildings are 2-bedroom. Rather, what they did is they adjusted. So we had this 3-bedroom unit, that was unit 4.
Right.
And they have shifted.
4 down that
Right.
way that were all 3 bedrooms, but on the new proposal, I can't.
They have altered
all
these
look
units,
like
yes.
two-
There's still some in the site.
2,
They are all, okay. And I misread that. I believe that this, I missaw because I saw that this was, okay.
I'm trying to get as close as possible.
But yes, they have converted that.
Okay.
And they have also shifted, so still maintaining the required setbacks. Previously, this was a 30-foot separation from Broadway and is now listed as a 20-foot. So, and that shift, as well as the different size of the units, has still allowed a little bit of a more open amenity in the central area, just in the form of an artificial turf lawn. But the other concessions they had made or regarding this amenity space on the west side of the property.
What about the parking?
The parking has not been impacted. However, they are providing those 8 guest parking spaces still, which while staff was advocating for more in the interest of just making sure that it was not an issue, but they are meeting what we would consider the minimum threshold for at what we're looking at. We're probably reaching for a little bit more in terms of the guest parking standard that we would like to codify, but this is right around that area that we're looking at. So while we would have liked and advocated for more, we believe that this is an adequate parking number at 68 parking spaces, a covered unit or covered parking space for each unit, and still having an excess for guest parking.
Current code would only require 60 then.
That's right.
Yeah.
So right now it's about 1 for every 4 units in terms of guest
Yes.
parking. Yes. And if there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer. The applicant is also here they don't have a presentation, but they would be happy to answer questions and have made themselves available for that.
Do the handicap count as part of those guests?
They haven't necessarily been labeled as guest parking specific. There are 3 handicap parking or accessible parking spots,
Do they
ADA
count as
compliant.
those
So-
extra 8?
They are within the 68. They haven't been designated as part of the 8 guest parking. They could be used either as needed for a resident on like a permanent basis, or they could be for guest parking, but they are included in that total number at least.
Commissioner,
Mr. Chair, I have a concern with the parking also. There is no on-street parking available anywhere nearby.
Right.
And we're talking 3-bedroom apartments that we hope, well, 2 in most cases, but there are also.
they're all going to 2.
They're all 2, okay.
As of the change that had not come in the staff report just over this weekend.
So they are all
now
2?
2, yes.
Okay, well, there's still a good chance that those apartments will have more than 3 cars. And my concern is if the minimum amount of parking there with no on-street parking available, where are they gonna go? And that's a question the residents are gonna have to answer, but I see that as a potential real parking squeeze. Along with that, well, this is a neighborhood where I travel a lot. And yesterday when I came to view the place, I wanted to make a left turn into Kmart to go and drive into the property. I had to wait for 4 cars making a right turn off of Broadway onto Delaware to pass by before I could make that turn. Now, if we're gonna add all this housing in there, I see we are gonna have traffic issues, and I think they're gonna come up at shift changes. So I don't know if we've done any traffic study at shift change, but I'd suggest we take another look at the traffic patterns on that corner and reevaluate whether or not we think this area will work with that.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Barker?
I'm gonna have to disagree a little bit with you, Frank. I live right across the street from this, so
Can you speak in the microphone?
I can,
Thank you.
but will I? Therein lies the rub. They have an entrance off of Delaware and another one off of Broadway. The one off of Broadway is just after, what is that, Palo Verde, anyway, whatever that road is there. So the traffic's already slowed there. So that's not a problem going west. Coming east, you may have a short problem, but you've also got people turning down into that other development. And this entrance is nice because you can just go take the light and turn in. You know, that works very well. So I don't agree with you on that particular thing. Do we have any idea how many parking spaces there are in Quail Creek or Quail Run right behind them?
Unfortunately, I didn't.
It looks like
units, I
it's
counted
very
units,
much
but
the
I did not count the parking spaces.
It looks
So-
like they're allocated much the same around their units. I was just curious, because we've been beating on this parking thing for months now, and I'm kind of wondering at what point does the renter say, oh, I've got 3 cars, I may not be able to rent here, and solve that problem? Do you know what I mean? Kind of renter beware. These are the parking spots.
Commissioner Barker, you are correct. So when Quail Run came in, it had to meet the requirements of the zoning ordinance,
Right.
just like this project is meeting
Right.
the minimum requirements of the zoning ordinance. And they're going above and beyond the zoning ordinance requirements with the 8 parking spaces.
Okay. And I've never seen a problem in there. I walk that area practically daily, so I've never seen a problem with parking in there. That was just a couple of thoughts.
Thank you.
Commissioner Cantwell?
Okay, 2 questions. That little strip labeled C, what,
The road.
by the Circle Care, okay,
Oh, yes, yeah, you mean this parcel?
yeah. What's gonna happen with that?
So as I understand, it's a good question, because it's a different owner than everyone else, and as I understand, talking to different realtors, it's just the owner has not really made themselves available, and so it hasn't really been easy to acquire or merge with any proposed project, so.
So it's just gonna
Great
kind
parking.
of sit there as being totally undevelopable land?
Maybe.
That is what it seems to be,
Yeah, I
and
mean,
it's
I-
unfortunate, it's a really odd parcel. It really
Yeah.
only has a use being combined with another parcel, just because with how narrow it is,
Okay, but
but yeah.
that already is subdivided as a separate parcel.
It is a
and-
separate parcel already, yeah.
And has a separate owner and therefore cannot be included in this.
That's
Thank
correct.
you. As far as the parking is concerned, yeah, we've had the, two spaces per dwelling unit for some time. Where we have most of the problem is when those 2 units are in garages. When we have all of the units being open, it tends to even itself out, because you're going to have some that are going to have 3 vehicles, you're also going to have some that are going to have 1. So when it's in garages, it causes more of a problem than when it's all open. And these are 850 square foot apartments, so I don't know how many are going to be having 3 vehicles. So, yeah, I'd like to see more parking, but I'm not gonna have a big issue with that.
Are these assigned, or do you not know? We can ask them.
I would defer that to the applicant, yes.
Anyone else?
It has been made note that each unit would have its own covered parking space. As for how the uncovered parking spaces are allocated, each unit should have one,
Yeah.
but I'll let the applicant
We'll
speak to that, yes.
That's no-
I have one other question
Commissioner
on the north side.
Yes.
What kind of, there's a wall there from Quail Run. So what is the plan for that? Are they going to put another wall up?
I don't believe that's been indicated, in as much as there's
Good.
already an existing block wall,
Yeah.
rather than double the walls up, the existing
you.
one.
Yeah,
Staff has deemed the existing one to be sufficient. When there's not a solid wall, they will have to put a solid wall, but I don't believe that's relevant on the north side of the property.
Thank you.
I think there is a
Yeah,
section
Frank
on the
just
east
pointed
side
out
that,
to me that in
needs to
very
be-
tiny print, teeny tiny print, it says that. So thank you.
thank you.
Anyone else, any questions?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, this is
Commissioner,
Commissioner Gage.
yeah, Commissioner Gage.
Yeah, so Nick, is staff then approving this revised plan and just omitting the existing number 9 in the report?
Staff is supportive of that, yes. In terms of that compromise with the developer, them making these steps and taking this concession and trying to adjust the plan accordingly, staff is supportive of removing condition number 9, as was presented in the staff report. This was unfortunately just a late-term development, happened over the weekend after all the items had been submitted. It had been something we had been discussing with the applicant for a while, but the actual change and the finalization of these plans just happened too late to make it into the packet, so.
Okay, thanks. I understand now.
I have one other question, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Parker.
In the staff report, it is mentioned there will be no HOA, that there will be a manager.
That would
Is-
be correct.
Is that manager on site?
I would have to defer that to the applicant. In this case, this is a leased residential community. An HOA is generally when
Right,
you've subdivided, you have a home ownership, and it's that kind of association. In this case,
Understood.
it should be property management. As for the specific details, I'll defer that to the applicant.
Okay.
All right.
My name is Rose Rubo. I'm here on behalf of the applicant. I work for the architects that are working on the project. I'm here to answer any questions. I don't have a presentation because I was not expecting to be here today because I am here on behalf of the applicant who could not make it. If I had a presentation, it would be very similar to what he had, the changes. And unfortunately, as he said, this change came about late in the process because we had initially tried to accommodate the public common area behind buildings 1 through 4 because we felt that was a more open space, but it is hard to get to. So we understood the concerns that staff had brought up to us, and that triggered the change to move it on the west side that we had initially tried to avoid because of the proximity to the street. The notes I had that you guys had asked and he deferred to me is the assigned parking. Each unit would get 1 covered assigned parking spaces, but the rest of the spaces would be open to park for everyone else. And as for there being a manager on site, my understanding is it would be an off-site manager. This site is tight and it doesn't really accommodate room for an interior clubhouse or anything. Are there any other questions I can answer?
I have a question.
Commissioner, go ahead. Callan.
It's about recommended motion number 2. Is there going to be age restrictions in the?
I do not believe there are any age restrictions on this project. I believe they are looking to provide workforce housing.
Anybody else have any questions?
He got off easy.
Yeah.
Well, Nick really dragged us through it all, so he did the work for you guys.
He's pretty good at that.
Yeah. All right, well, thank you then. Our Commissioner Gage, do you have any questions?
No, I'm good.
Seeing how this is a public hearing, I'm now gonna open it to the public. Does anybody from the public have any questions? If you do, please step forward, state your name and address.
Good evening. I'm Gary Brigham, and I'm in that sideways house over at 704 South Delaware. This is the first meeting we ever heard about. So, and we've been in our house for 3.5 years. So we would have shown up much earlier, but like I said, this is the first time we heard of this happening. Jumping on the whole parking issue, for one, if there's only one designated space covered parking for the people and the other ones are, you know, first come, first serve, whoever fills them up, who's going to be regulating, you know, how many persons are in each unit? You know, we've all known renters, you know, and all of a sudden there's 8 people living in the one spot. How do they plan to, you know, police that, because with all those extra people are the extra cars, and if they only have that limited parking, I suppose we could open up our front yard. We have a lot of room and make some money, but I think that's a concern, piggybacking off of, you know, some of the stuff that you all have talked about. And also, I want to say, that corner is very high traffic. It's super busy. And, I mean, there's a memorial there for the motorcycle fellow who lost his life at that corner. You have to watch every time you take a turn of the people pulling into the Circle K right there. There's lots of accidents that happen there because we live across the street. We can hear them and see them. So to say that that corner comes to dead ends and it's not busy, I'd invite anybody to sit in our living room and try to have our front door open and watch TV. You can't do it. The traffic is constant and it's loud and it's impossible. So we can't enjoy the fresh air from the front of our house that faces that intersection. So I think that whole statement that we heard earlier is false. I don't want to have a not in my backyard, or in this case, front yard mentality. But we actually do have a view of the superstitions from our front porch. The other apartment buildings block what would be a, you know, maybe not $1 million view, but a $500,000 view. But in this case, if two-story things are built, now we don't have any view, even a $25,000 view. That would be gone from our property and everybody that's on that side. I wish we had heard about this earlier. We would have attended the meetings prior to this. So I guess, if, you know, I don't know where all these extra folks are going to park. They're going to be parking in the neighborhoods and walking back to the apartment buildings or such, but I guess that's something to explore, and I don't know if you have any other concerns.
If you don't know the area, there's a lot of transient traffic in that area.
Yes, there is.
Ma'am, you're gonna have to come up and when it's your turn to speak, just one person at a time, so you can come up and speak next. Thank you.
I mean, you said you were from the area, so
Yeah,
you
I
know.
just live across the street.
Yeah, so do we, so you know exactly how busy it is already.
Busy.
I mean, Carmen and I have talked many times about the extra folks and everything coming and going, and I said, I don't think it's gonna make a difference because it's so horrible already at that intersection. I don't know who said about waiting, having to wait 4 cars. Well, you can wait and almost get in an accident, anything. Anybody turning that corner, they have to make an immediate turn to get into the Circle K. And if you're not familiar with it, that's accident upon accident upon accident. You know, maybe look at some police reports or whatever at the intersection there. I witnessed and was a witness for one that happened when I was standing in my front yard, you know, a few months back. And I walked down and said, this is what happened and such. So that's just our concern, so thank you.
Thank you. Ma'am, you're more than welcome to come up, state your name, address.
Carmen Corrigan, I'm also at 7 and 4 South Delaware. There's a lot of transient traffic in that area, within a good 6-block radius of that corner. And is that complex that you're looking to put up, is that going to be gated? Is it going to be gated?
Ma'am, they're not allowed to engage with you.
If it's not going to, if it's not going to be gated, and you're gonna have picnic areas in there, and no, no fobs for just the people who live there to come in, then you leave it open to whoever decides to take part in a picnic table, a bench, God bless them if they can find somewhere to sleep, but this is another attraction for them to go wherever they want to, whenever they choose. And like I said, as far as the parking, if you think there's gonna be one or two people at all times in those buildings, in those apartments, I just think that's overlooking the obvious that you're gonna have a whole lot more people in there. So like I said, the traffic in that area is horrible. Not just the noise, but the accident level. And like I said, the people who are homeless, they're in there. It's just another place for them as well too. And the leases, are the leases 3-month leases? Are they 6-month leases? Are they 30-month leases? 30-day leases? You're gonna have turnaround in there like crazy. And again, traffic, which is already way over above board. So it's a huge concern of ours.
Thank you, ma'am. Would anybody else like to speak at this time? Again, anybody else? Seeing none, I'm going to close it out. All right. So this being a CUP, we have the finding of facts.
You want me to read them?
Huh?
Read them, or do you want me to?
Do you want to read them?
You can if you want. I will if you need to.
I'll let you read them.
Thanks.
Since you volunteered.
Okay, there's several issues that have to be addressed. First is adequacy of roadways, off-street parking, public facilities and services to accommodate the proposed use. Do we see any issues with that?
I have an issue with traffic. A serious issue with traffic. I think that I'd like to have the body shop franchise for that corner, because I think it's going to be really wicked when people start coming in and out of that place.
Well, I think we have 2 entrances, and depending on which way you want to go and stuff, I think you can get in and out of there making rights. You don't necessarily always have to make a left, so.
Okay, I just see a real issue with traffic in that area. As much as I appreciate how difficult a piece of property this is going to be to fill, are we setting ourselves up for some problems down the road by filling it? And are those problems going to be worth the filling up of this empty piece of property? I think there's been some very serious concerns brought up, and I think we ought to talk about them.
Well, that's what we're kind of doing right now, is talking about them.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Barker.
what suggestions, Frank, would you have to whom to speak about these issues, how to check out the situation to the point where we would feel it was totally adequate or totally inadequate, or this could be done or that? I mean, where can we go for that?
Well, I see one possible thing, and I don't know if this is realistic or not, but to make the Delaware exit a right turn only. That would help alleviate the cross traffic there. That turning left out of there is going to be a challenge anyhow.
I agree with you. It's too close to the line.
And other than that, as a newcomer here, I don't know how we do or what we do for traffic studies. But that's an area, I think, with this situation where if we do traffic studies, that's where one is called for. Once this is in place, we're going to have it. We aren't going to say, oh, I'm sorry we did that, and unwind it. It's going to be there, and we're going to have to deal with it.
I think in the past, we have done traffic studies, but mostly those were for much larger units. You're talking 150, 250 units rather than 30. And even there, it was rare to come into traffic issues with the added volume that those have. I was over there. Broadway is 4 lanes with a 5th center lane.
Absolutely.
Broadway doesn't seem to be the problem.
And Delaware is also 4 lanes?
No, Delaware, it narrows into 3 by the corner if you're
Okay,
going
it's 4 lanes south, and then it's 2 lanes north,
2 lanes north.
and then 3 at the stoplight?
North.
North, it's only one lane.
It's 1, 2, 3 at the stoplight, and then it narrows down.
Yeah, you have one lane,
Each direction.
yeah, one lane north. As you turn off of Broadway onto Delaware, you have one lane going north.
Yeah. Okay, so Delaware, I consider that to be a 2-lane road, then 1 north, 1 south.
But it does have turn lanes for left and right down at the light.
Yeah.
At the light, yes.
And then there's even a left turn lane up there where the entrance would be for that apartment, roughly.
Yeah, it's the one I got into when I turned into Circle K.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the issue at that corner is the entrance of Circle K, which is, normally for that, you have entrances off of both streets, and here you have it only off of Broadway.
No, you
And
have both,
it
you
wa-
have an entrance on both sides of
What is on
Circle
both
K.
sides?
Yeah, you can come in from both ends.
Yes, Joel. Please, Joel.
Yes, there's a certain level at one point that you require a traffic study, and I'm not sure this level of development.
It won't.
Also, if you're gonna talk about, turn lanes, you really should have the city engineer here to discuss it. So before you impose any, conditions, you know, you could continue the matter to get the city engineer here to talk about it. However, I think this may have been studied at the staff level pretty
That's
significantly, so you may want to hear from Sydney,
That's correct, Mr. Stern. So to interject, Commissioner Robin and Cantwell, this project was reviewed by the city engineer. The city engineer follows certain engineering guidelines such as the AASHTO standards. For development this size, the AASHTO handbook and standards do not require traffic impact analysis. When it comes to about 30 units and the development scale, it's a very, very tiny impact on an arterial, such as Broadway. One of our reasons in proposing approval of this project is because it's Zone B1 commercial right now. So B1 commercial, any commercial activity would be of a higher traffic count and volume than a residential use. So I'm sure the neighbors could attest how busy Circle K can get. So we were cognizant of that in making our decision, and we felt that a residential use would be better fit for that corner and that community than a commercial use with a higher traffic count.
Thank you. You explained it
Thank
better
you.
than I did.
Good job.
Okay? Anything? Negative impacts by emissions of odor, dust, gas, noise, lighting, vibrations, smoke, heat, or glare.
I think we'd have less with the residential than we would
Yeah.
commercial.
Right now, it's open land, and it looks like it's driven across quite a bit, and it's probably creating more dust, and now it's all going to be conditioned surface.
Or if commercial were to go in, I think we'd end up with less with the residential.
Anything else?
No.
Okay, 3, contribution to the deterioration of the neighborhood or the negative impact on neighborhood property values.
I think just the opposite.
Opposite. We'll take vacant land and turn it into productive.
Okay, anything else? 4, compatibility with surrounding uses and structures.
Fits the area.
I think it's fitting for the area.
Yes.
5, conformance with the general plan and city policies. I think
Yes.
that has been addressed. 6, screening and buffering of uses. This will be completely walled. I did not see any provisions for gates. Nick, I believe it's not.
No. No, and it has a full landscape package, everything.
And 7, unique nature of the property, use and/or development's physical characteristics. You know, I hate turning commercial property into residential, but given the lack of development there, I think that's probably the best use for here.
I agree.
Okay, so I think we hit those.
All right, any further discussion on this?
Yeah, my personal opinion is, I think it's tight, it's pushing the limits, but it is within our code and our limits. Like to see more parking, but that's also within code, and I think this is a better use for the property than open land.
I agree. I have one comment. I do understand the transient issue living there. Hopefully, having a development there will help that out a little bit. Hopefully, it will discourage that kind of usage, and being aware of that as a single property owner, hopefully the gentleman has some plans for that, because it is a problem there.
Anybody else like to make a statement? I would like to make a statement. I think, in the long run, I think it will help the area. I think it'll actually help with the transient, because I think by having more people in the area, it'll help police the area. You know, we can't hold, well, I mean, technically we can with the CUP, but I don't think it's fair to hold this developer to a higher standard than what the city's holding other developers to with parking. I know as the city, we're trying to work on getting better parking requirements in, but we can't just start holding certain developers to a higher level at this time, and not all. I would like to see more parking in the future, and we are working on that as a city. And hopefully we get to that level at some point. But I think they have gone above and beyond to some degree. So.
I agree.
I also think that along those lines, it will have walls all the way around, and there is no street parking on either Delaware or Broadway, which will limit things as well.
One thing that might help is to have them designate open parking per unit.
I agree by
That-
having
that
only
would be-
one assigned and there is more.
That would be helpful.
Well, there is all open parking other than the one assigned,
Right.
so.
Commissioner Barker, that is something that you can include in your motion.
Oh, that the open parking be designated,
Correct.
With-
So our zoning code requires just 2 spaces per unit,
right.
but not its designation. But from a property management standpoint, it's probably easier to designate parking spaces in a multifamily.
And if you could also you could also have them put up signs for those spaces. What unit is assigned to the space?
Yeah, but I think it's better to have the non-assigned spaces as being open. In other words, one assigned and one open for those that have only one vehicle. Then you're not tying up a space for a property that will never use it. If
That's
you
the other
assign,
side of the coin, yeah. You're right.
you know, if you assigned 2 spaces for each unit,
Gotcha.
so, you know, I can see with one, but then you leave everything else open, and it takes care of itself a little bit better that way, I think.
Gotcha.
That's what I thought you were saying with that. I'm sorry, Commissioner Barker. I misunderstood you. That's what I was agreeing with, was what Commissioner
Well,
Cantwell
heck,
was
I'll
saying.
take that agreement. Thanks, Mr. Chair. Thanks a lot. Would you like a motion?
I would, and then we're gonna have to delete number 9 out of the conditions.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay, I move that,
Chairman, I'm sorry, did you want to ask Commissioner Gage if he had any comments?
Oh,
oh, poor
Thank you.
Jesse. Sorry,
can-
Jesse.
yeah, Commissioner Gage?
That's okay. No, I agree. I guess the one issue I have is turning commercial into residential, so echoing Commissioner Cantwell's concern. But I agree with staff's comments that this site is not really suited for
It's not conducive.
commercial use in its current configuration with that Circle K there. So that's my only concern, and I don't think much can be done about it.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Gage. Commissioner Barker, would you like to do the motion?
Sure. I move that the Planning and Zoning Commission approve a conditional use permit, case P-22-75-CUP, a request by John Fox of William Seymour Company Incorporated for a 30-unit, two-story leased residential community. Correct, Sydney?
Correct.
Yes. Located at the northeast corner of Broadway Avenue and Delaware Drive, subject to conditions 1 through 8 as listed on the February 14th, 2023 Planning and Zoning Commission staff report.
Second.
Rudy, I have a motion and a second. Can I get a roll call?
Commissioner Callan.
We're yes or no here, right?
Yes.
Well, you can explain your vote too if you want, since you're new.
Yeah. It's tough for me because it works on that street. You know, I've seen that street develop my whole life, and it's full of little spots like this, and it's an interesting little plot. We've all seen that. I just don't like the density and then the 2 stories. I'm never a fan of the 2 stories, but I know it fits into our plan. So with that, I'm going to say no.
Commissioner Shane Beck.
Well, I also have my reservations. At the same time, I've been involved with the city for a while, and watching us try to develop properties that seem to be almost undevelopable. And I can't see any commercial going in here. I would prefer a different kind of residential, but we can spend 10 years waiting for that to happen and watch the dust fly on this empty property all that while. So despite my reservations, I'm going to vote yes.
Commissioner Gage.
Yes.
Commissioner Barker.
Yes?
Commissioner Begeman.
Yes.
Commissioner Cantwell.
Yes.
Commissioner, Vice Chair Hanchey.
Yes.
That is 6 in favor, 1 opposed. The motion passes, Mr. Chairman. This is a conditional use permit, so it becomes effective with your decision here tonight unless within the next 20 days, someone files an appeal to the city council, subject to documentation as to the reasons why and subject to filing fee. Otherwise, your decision stands.
Thank you, Rudy. So we're done with public hearings. Now we have old business. Are you gonna address these 3 together? Are we gonna go?
We have our 3 planners here tonight to give you very short presentations.
We're gonna go one at a time?
Yes, sir.
All right. First one up is gonna be 23085, presentation discussion, case 23, or P-23-15-AM, a proposed text amendment addressing the direction to staff given on December 13th regarding Article 1-7 parking, loading, and circulation regulation to exclude trailers with living quarters from recreational vehicle limitations in residential districts, and Article 1-17 definitions to add or revise definitions of recreational vehicles and trailers, the exclusion of trailers and toy haulers with living quarters from recreational vehicle limitations in residential districts.
Good evening, Commission members. My name is Erica Hernandez. I'm a planner on staff. I have a very brief update on the direction to staff regarding the recreational vehicles and trailers with living quarters in them. So with the increasing discussion with residents and city council regarding the limitations on the trailers with RV combinations, staff is looking into the definitions of recreational vehicles, trailers, and toy haulers in the Arizona Revised Statutes. This is a direction by Planning and Zoning on December 13th last year. We are also looking into generally where these vehicles may be located on the properties. Now, let me just go back one. So we are looking at all of our options, number of vehicles allowed, and zoning districts. That concludes my presentation. We will hopefully have a recommendation for you in the spring.
Oh, okay.
I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Mr.
Chair,
Barker?
we have two conflicting ordinances and codes. One's a ordinance and one's in the codes on the parking of RVs.
So there is only one RV allowed in any residential district.
But we have two conflicting passages. Is that correct, Joel?
I believe that there's some subsections that do conflict with each other that I think we're going to be addressed in this, maybe not tonight, but later.
Those need to be part of this presentation.
We will have an updated presentation.
Okay, because that has a lot to do with some of this, I think. So if we get that conflict resolved first,
Right, okay.
then talk about the rest of it, I think that will be helpful.
Commissioner Barker, the purpose of tonight's code update is just that, is an update on our research
Right.
and our findings.
I just wanted to add this to
absolutely.
your research.
Absolutely, and we will
Because
definitely include that.
It seems like all three of these that you have on old business have basically what we ask you to do and
Exactly.
nothing else. So,
We're
just
hoping
add
for
that
results.
to the
Yeah.
direction to staff.
We are hoping to have results and recommendations in
Okay.
the spring.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Yeah.
Commissioner Cantwell?
When we get into the presentation, I think it would be helpful if we just go through and make sure that we're all working with the same definition, okay?
Right, definitely.
Recreational vehicles, these are the limitations on them in each of the districts.
Yes.
Trailers, are there any restrictions on size or anything else? And, just so that we're all starting from the same basis.
Right.
Because, you have RVs that are 20 feet long, and you have RVs that are 50 feet long. You have
Right.
trailers that are 4 feet long, and you have trailers that are 48 feet long. So, just trying to make sure we're all working with the same definitions.
If it fits, it ships.
All right, then.
Commissioner Gage, do you have any questions?
No, not on this issue.
All right, thank you.
Commissioner Cantwell, something else that we've taken a look at is having an exhibit, a picture exhibit of what that is included, and we would include that information in the definitions. Confusion when people are speaking about these terms. So,
Thank you, Sid.
absolutely.
Yeah, the more we can keep the definition of an RV to be the same as what the state considers it to be,
Yes.
the better off we are.
This is almost word for word. This is simplified, but in the ordinance, it is almost word for word. It's the Arizona revised statutes. The only thing is that we don't actually have, or they don't actually have, a definition for horse trailers or toy haulers,
Right.
and just trailers and semi-trailers.
So we're gonna get to break ground.
Yeah, definitely.
How do you feel about that, Joel?
Ooh-wee.
Is that it? Thank
have
you very
any
much.
questions?
I think we're good. All right, next one, 23-086, presentation, discussion, and update for case P-23-14-AM. A proposed text amendment addressing the direction to staff giving on December 13th, 2022 regarding section 1-6-3 fences and walls to evaluate the permitted fencing and walls material.
All right. Good evening, commission members. My name is Kelsey Shatnick. I'm a planner on staff, And tonight, I have a very simple and brief update for you on the direction to staff given regarding fences and walls. To give a little background on this item, on December 13th, 2022, staff was directed to better define and describe permitted fencing materials within our code. Since that date, staff has focused our research on the following topics. The first is permitting requirements, specifically looking into single-family zone properties and whether or not other cities require permits on that item. The next, we are taking a look at city codes and design requirements of other municipalities in order to determine best practices on permitted fence and wall materials and determine whether or not that should differ between land uses or zoning districts. And then finally, we are taking this opportunity just to provide a general update on our fences and walls section of our code. This would include items like providing a little bit more detail and guidance on where on a property a resident could place their fence. That concludes my presentation for this evening. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have. We are planning to bring this item back within the next few months to provide a more in-depth overview of our findings as well as a draft update of that code text amendment.
Suggestion?
I have a question too. Do we currently require permit for a fence under 6 foot?
Under 6 feet, no.
And we're looking into changing that?
I think right now we're kind of just looking at what other cities do. I know that was previously brought up a couple years ago, looking at, sometimes fences and walls are placed in easements, and without a permit, we don't know where it's being placed and kind of how to regulate that. So I think we're just kind of looking at our options right now and seeing what other cities do and does it make sense for our own.
Vice Chair Hanchey, in our research and on our experience working at other municipalities, it is what we have found so far is that it is unique to each community. It's really a community-to-community issue. A lot of it resides with the aesthetics of the neighborhood, resident concerns of what that neighborhood looks like, and also there has been probably a long history of resident disputes where people build fences in incorrect places or their neighbor thinks that it's been placed incorrectly, and that will require a permit. So that is what we've found so far, but we'll have the complete findings of that in about a month or so.
Okay. Can I make a suggestion if we do? Can we make it like a very economical or
Of course, absolutely,
almost free permit?
absolutely,
More of like a housekeeping permit?
indeed.
Thank you.
So we've actually seen in one of the municipalities that I looked at, that is something that they offer. It's basically a $50 fee where you bring a basic site plan showing where it is on the property, and it's kind of a simple permit. So it kind of, as Sydney said, it differs depending on the municipality and the rules they have in place.
Commissioner Barker, you said.
Just a suggestion, could we have pictures with this one too, please?
Yes.
This came up because of fencing material that
Absolutely.
was deemed unsightly by some.
Commissioner Barker, I think that is our biggest challenge, because that is all subjective, of course, and staff.
Some of it isn't.
Yes, yeah, and we would argue that you're correct. So I think that is our biggest challenge going forward, is providing successful examples of a diversity of material types. And then our second challenge after that is enforcing or helping facilitate or uphold those standards and those examples when perhaps permits come in or fences start being constructed.
But if there are designated material no-nos or very inexpensive permits, I think 50 is even too much, but if there's that kind of thing, when a dispute occurs, the fact that this person did in fact go through that process would be very helpful with the dispute.
Agreed.
Commissioner Cantwell?
Yeah, I would second the idea of permits. One of the things I've run into in the past is fences that are not placed exactly on the property line, and I think it's the law in Arizona that if a fence is built, it determines the property line?
No.
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 That is not correct.
Okay.
But the problem is getting them to remove that fence.
That's
Once
true.
that fence is up,
That's a problem.
getting them to remove it, so hence a permit is helpful.
So in
And-
practicality, maybe it does define the lines, but some people don't want to fix the problem by doing deeding. They might have to deed part of the property, and they can't fall below a certain square footage for the lot, so that could be a problem too.
Right.
Anybody else? Commissioner Gage, do you have anything on this?
No, nothing on this one.
All right, thank you,
Thank you.
Kelsey.
Oh, Nick gets the fun one.
Next one up, 23-087, presentation, discussion, and update for case P-23-16-AM, a proposed text amendment addressing the direction to staff given on December 13th, 2022 regarding Article 1-7, parking, loading, and circulation regulations, including guest parking requirements and related parking requirements in multifamily residential development. Our favorite.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nick.
This is an oft-discussed topic, just in terms, on December 13th, just like the other direction to staffs, staff received the direction to research and provide recommendations regarding the requirements for guest parking. It is a very often discussed topic. And I think we're all in agreement that the code right now does not have any guest parking specific requirements except for within manufactured home parks and RV parks. So as we've received a lot more of these multifamily style developments, it's become acutely aware that we have a need in order to actually have something in the code that requires it. Now, exactly how that takes place, staff has gone through the different cities in the valley, or cities and towns of different sizes. Often, if they do have a guest parking requirement, we've noticed that it's somewhere typically between 0.25 to 0.5 guest parking spots per dwelling unit. What that would be is one guest parking spot for every 4 or one guest parking spot for every 2, or somewhere in between. The exact ratio is often determined by the needs of the community, such as if they're close to transit or the different aspects specific to the community of how many cars they think they may need. So with that, staff is still, the exact process that we're researching right now is what is the number that Apache Junction needs. So probably somewhere in the middle of that, but we're seeing that somewhere between 0.25 to 0.5 guest parking spots per dwelling unit is something that would accommodate the needs of the community. What that would look like is if you have 100 units, you would have generally the 2 parking spots for every unit. So we're looking at 200 resident parking spots, and then at 0.5 that would be all the way up to another 100. At 0.25 that would be about 50 guest parking spots. So
A little much.
right. So we're looking at trying to find that right measure in terms, because of course every parking spot is square footage, but there is of course this acute need to make sure that there are parking spots provided for guests. Make sure that there's not overflow, that it doesn't become a neighborhood issue. So those finer details are what we're trying to fine tune right now, so that we can bring this up to you as soon as we can, because it's definitely been noted both by the Planning and Zoning Commission and by the City Council that this is a deficiency of the code that needs to be addressed, and we'd like to do it as soon as we can. While we're doing this, one of the other common parking-related discussions has been electrical vehicle parking. That, of course, being a newer one, not all of the city codes that we've researched have anything on it, but there are some codes that have it. It's generally a similar requirement, whether it's a percentage of the parking spots or like a strict number. It's often far fewer than guest parking, it still being a new technology, but that's what we're seeing is electrical vehicle charging stations, whether it's for guests or residents. It would probably have a similar, like fundamentally kind of a similar ratio, not the same number, but it would be like per every so many units, we would require X amount of electrical vehicle parking. On a similar note, we don't have bicycle or motorcycle parking spaces, and that's something that we're interested in including as well. And so just in terms of updating our parking table and the requirements of this many units requires this many parking spaces, we're looking at adding a few factors into that instead of just the guest parking. But that is, of course, one of our critical needs.
And I'd like to, in those calculations, look at the ADA as well, because those have to be factored in there as well.
By that, just for clarification, would you say like ADA guest parking specifically? Okay.
Yes, because, you know, they have to be set aside specifically for that, and so like your average guest cannot use those spots. So, you know, they're kind of restricted spots, so.
Understood. So that's a consideration. The code language itself should be fairly simple. Currently, we have a table, and it just has that calculation of for every this many bedrooms, this many parking spaces. And so it's adding an entry within that table. So we hope it's just finding this number and this exact recommendation that we'll be returning to you with.
Because I think like with even the charging, you know, like, you know, the charging, yes, I mean, if you're a resident there, a lot of times your residential spot will be your charging spot as well. So therefore, there's only going to be a need for so many guest charging spots, you know, that don't account for the residential ones.
And some of, specific to electrical vehicle, that might also impact commercial development as well, such as what we've seen in our research. Yes, there is some present in multifamily developments. Single families, you know, you'll charge in your garage. But we have seen such as Tempe Marketplace or places like the Fry's Marketplace, where when you have like 500 or more parking spaces, they generally, in different parts of the valley, have been converting a few of those into electrical vehicle just to kind of, I guess, ease in this new technology. Range anxiety of being able to make it so far and find a charging spot has been one of the most noted needs of the technology. So just as it's grown and developed, the electrical vehicle charging spaces and the requirement for that would probably have an impact on the commercial parking as well, just as a note.
But we kind of mentioned that under the multifamily stuff. So,
yeah, since the multifamily guest parking was the most important need. That's what the original direction to staff was regarding.
Right.
But we're just trying to make sure that we have all our ducks in order.
Exactly.
I have a question.
Commissioner Schoenbeck?
One thing we face in Apache Junction, I think you've probably considered this, is we don't have a steady demand for that guest parking year-round. We hit peaks, I would think, in the winter, and in the summer we don't need as much. I don't think there's any way to allow for that, but I think we have to figure in the peak winter parking need, and that's only going to increase, I think.
Thank you.
Commissioner Barker?
This is out of the blue, but since the legislature appears to have a need to change up the zone for communities, part of that need is parking. They feel like we're overdoing parking, therefore diminishing the developer's ability to develop as many pieces as he wants. So I guess what I'm wondering is, we're going to go through all this, and this looks like at this point in time, this legislation's moving pretty well, very well, as a matter of fact. Isn't it 1117 that has that? I think it is. And anyway, it's going through the Senate like wildfire. So we need to keep our eye on that as we do this, because if we overkill, we'll have to just come back and change it.
Yeah, well, staff is aware of the legislation. I don't personally know how it is proceeding through the course, but were that legislation to be approved, it would actually limit the city's ability
Absolutely.
to require parking spots.
Absolutely.
That being the proposal, or one of the primary proposals of that specific bill. So we are proceeding as things have been, as far as the city has the power to regulate this in the current state law. But were that to happen, we'll have to revisit this in a later time. That would affect our zoning ordinance in multiple places, as well as other similar legislation going through, but we will proceed as a current need of the city and as we currently see it.
Just thought I'd throw that out.
Commissioner Cantwell?
Yeah, I think one of the things when you're looking at this is, right now it's 2 per unit, let's say, which I think is pretty much the standard. You probably need to put in some provisions for whether or not those 2 are assigned. Where I first started running into this here was when the 2 were both in the garage. So you're winding up with everything in the garage, and then there's no open parking anyplace in the development for guests or for people who have 3 vehicles. So when you have that situation, then you probably need more street-level parking than in a situation where either they're all unassigned or, like with the one earlier, one spot is assigned and then the other ones are open, and that gives you more flexibility for parking.
Thank you, I've noted.
Anybody else here? Commissioner Gage, do you have any question? Did we lose it?
Sorry,
Oh.
the mute button's broken. No questions, but I would like to thank staff for the work on these 3 issues and look forward to hearing more in the future.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Nick. New business. New business, election of chair and vice chair. First time going through this.
That's a nice, simple process here.
It is.
Just have to make a lot of
Yeah.
So we're gonna go through and elect a new chair.
Why?
Huh?
I said, why?
Because it's on the list. Well, I'm not even the chair. I'm just the
Perhaps
vice
we
chair
don't
right
have
now.
one.
Because we don't actually have a chair right now.
Well, I think you're
Because
doing
Peter Heck was
Right.
taken from us.
by choice.
So,
He moved away on us.
so at this point, I am going to open nomination for chair.
No, yeah,
Oh, no.
So,
no, both.
It's not that simple.
Follow the script.
Not that
Follow the script.
I said at this point, I'm going to open. So, can I have a motion to open the nomination for chairperson? Can
So
somebody
moved.
please make the nomination?
Which one are you doing?
For the chair.
Open it or nominating 2?
Open nominations.
Open nominations.
nomination.
Thank you. So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and I have a second.
Commissioner Hanchey,
Yes.
Commissioner Shanebeck,
Yes.
Commissioner Begeman,
Yes.
Commissioner Cantwell,
Yes.
Commissioner Kellen,
Yes.
Commissioner Barker,
Yes.
Commissioner Gage.
Yes.
So the nominations for chair are open. At this point, we will accept nominations.
So I now call for nominations for chairperson.
I would nominate Commissioner Henchy for chairperson.
Okay.
So you ask again.
Ask again.
So
Are there any other?
I call for nomination for chairperson.
Again.
I call for nomination for chairperson.
And one more time.
And I call for nomination for chairperson. Okay, so now, close the nomination for chair. Can I have a motion to close nominations for chair?
So moved.
Second.
I have a second. Can I have a roll call?
Commissioner Gage,
Yes.
Commissioner Hanchey,
Yes.
Commissioner Shanebeck,
Yes.
Commissioner Begeman,
Yes.
Commissioner Cantwell,
Yes.
Commissioner Callan,
Yes.
Commissioner Barker.
Yes.
Nominations closed. We have one nomination for chairman, that being Dave Hanchey. So he is the only person that will get voted on.
So I now call for a motion to approve Chairman, or Commissioner Hanchey for chairperson.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, Rudy?
Commissioner Barker,
Yes.
Commissioner Gage,
Yes.
Commissioner Hanchey,
Yes.
Commissioner Shanebeck,
Yes.
Commissioner Begeman,
Yes.
Commissioner Cantwell,
Yes.
Commissioner Callan.
Yes.
Congratulations, Mr. Hanchey. You are now our brand new chair.
Down there.
You don't have to move.
Yourself together.
No more excuses down there.
Yeah.
You are the
So
chair.
now I am.
That means you got a pay grade too, right?
Yep.
Oh,
They
yeah,
tripled
right.
my pay,
All right.
what I was getting before. All right, so now we're gonna open nominations for vice chair. Can I have a motion to open nominations for vice chairperson?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Can I have a roll call, Rudy?
Chairman Hanchey,
Yes.
Commissioner Shanebeck,
Yes.
Commissioner Begeman,
Yes.
Commissioner Cantwell,
Yes.
Commissioner Callan,
Yes.
Commissioner Barker,
Yes.
Commissioner Gage.
Yes.
So moved.
Okay. I now call for nominations for vice chairperson.
I nominate Commissioner Gage for vice chair.
Oh.
Say no.
He said, oh.
I call for nominations for vice chairperson. I call for nominations for vice chairperson. I call for nominations for vice chairperson. All right. Can I have a motion to close nominations for vice chairperson?
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Roll call, Rudy?
I'm sorry, who made the motion? Mr. Shanebeck?
No,
I did.
Dirk.
Dirk.
Dirk? Okay. Commissioner Gage,
Yes.
Chairman Hanchey,
Yes.
Commissioner Shanebeck,
Yes.
Commissioner Begeman,
Yes.
Commissioner Cantwell,
Yes.
Commissioner Callan,
Yes.
Commissioner Barker.
Yes.
Congratulations, Mr. Gage, you are now the vice chair.
That's what happens when you're on the phone.
Yeah. I was gonna dodge a bullet there.
You don't have to thank us. Okay.
Accepted with extreme enthusiasm.
Actually, that was,
Could
don't we
tell.
have to vote on it?
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah, that was just the roll call, too.
that was just a roll call. right?
Yes. I now call for a motion to approve Commissioner Gage for vice chairperson.
So moved.
So moved.
Oh, okay.
Second.
Roll call, Rudy?
Commissioner Barker,
Yes.
Commissioner Gage,
Yes.
Chairman Hanchey,
Yes.
Commissioner Shanebeck,
Yes.
Commissioner Begeman,
Yes.
Commissioner Cantwell,
Yes.
Commissioner Callan.
Yes.
Now it's official.
Too many formalities.
All right. Now we're gonna move on to Joel, right?
Well, the question is, Commission, do you want to do that tonight? We could postpone this to another meeting if you'd like. Where it is getting a little late. This could take,
3 hours.
well, it could take 3 hours, but it could also take, I'd probably average about 35 to sometimes an hour. But it's up to you. If you want to, if you want to get into details on it. There are two new members, but we could also postpone this because it's Valentine's night. It's up to you. What do you want to do?
I think we're all well versed on this, aren't we?
I think we have, has Ari heard it?
I have a doctorate in this.
I've read it.
Have we, Frank and I could go ahead and do it for you.
I think we've all been through it with the
I'm-
exception of our.
I think Ari's the only one that hasn't been through this.
And he said he's read it.
Well, I could meet with them privately also if you'd like. I've done that with members before, but I leave it up to you. If you want me to go through this, I can.
We need a motion for this?
If you're going to continue it, yes.
Yeah, if we're
Or
gonna
if we're going,
continue it.
if we're not gonna do it at all, then what?
Well, you could also just say, we can do this at the next meeting, where there's a light meeting. We could do that too.
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner
Shane back.
Shane Beck.
Remember the movie Shane? That's a cure. I move that we postpone the presentation by the city attorney until we have a meeting that is not quite as busy as this one.
Second.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Rudy, roll call.
Commissioner Gage,
Yes.
Commissioner Barker,
Yes.
Commissioner Begeman,
Yes,
Commissioner Cantwell,
Yes.
Chairman Hanshi,
Yes.
Commissioner Callan,
Yes.
Commissioner Shanebeck.
Yes.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
All right,
I guess we all want to celebrate Arizona's birthday.
we do. Information and reports.
None this evening, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Selection of meeting dates, times, location, and purpose. Do I have a motion for,
I move that the Planning and Zoning Commission hold a regular meeting on February 28th, 2023 at 7 PM in the City Council chambers located at 300 East Superstition Boulevard. In the event there are no items to be brought forward to the commission, these meetings may be canceled. Notification of cancellation properly posted and the commission notified by staff.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Rudy, can I get a roll call?
Commissioner Shanebeck,
Yes.
Commissioner Callan,
Yes.
Chairman Hanshi,
Yes.
Commissioner Cantwell,
Yes.
Commissioner Begeman,
Yes.
Commissioner Barker,
Yes.
Vice Chair Gage.
Yes.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
All right. I hereby adjourn the meeting at 8:23.